The vibe check is almost over for now. We close our interview with Jason Beatty and talk about what the Magic have to prove this year today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 30th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. I am a credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we close our summer vibe check with Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. To close our interview, to close my conversation with Jason, we talk a little bit about what to expect from Franz Wagner in EuroBasket, as well as the pressure the Orlando Magic are facing. We'll clean up some other stuff from throughout the interview to close the show. But before we do any of that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Whether we're your first listen of the day, whether we're just part of your everyday, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. We truly appreciate all of our Orlando Magic dailies who listen to Locked On Magic every single day that we post. It's supposed to be on our summer schedule, but we're probably going to go all 5 days this week anyway. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. With that, long time coming. We did 2 parts the previous 2 days here on Locked On Magic. Let's close it out today with my conversation with Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. You know, I think generally what Mosley has started doing, what this team in general has started doing, is beginning to phase this franchise out of the sort of rebuild, and you're always developing, so I don't think that ever goes away, but phase out of the kind of rebuild mindset and into the winning mindset. The coaching staff that Jamal Mosley had, from Nate Tibbetts to Jesse Mermis to all the guys that he had, like Nate Tibbetts was a G League coach before he came to the Magic. Jesse Mermis was a G League head coach and a G League coach before coming to the Magic. They built a coaching staff that was there to teach and there to help the team grow and kind of learn how to win in the NBA. And I think that, I don't know if I wouldn't call it tension, but I think some of the ceiling the Magic were hitting is that they were a program oriented toward this rebuild mindset and I think this is organizationally, I think this is including some of the things Jeff Weltman did, for better or for worse. And again, they got Desmond Bane, and we'll see how that works out and if that was worth all the costs and everything. But now they're having to shift to a winning mindset. We've got to be ruthless to win. When opportunities are there to win, we've got to take them. We're going out and spending a lot to get a Desmond Bane because we think he can complete this roster and help us get to the conference finals, get to the finals one day. And I think that more than anything, like bringing in an experienced assistant like Joe Prunty is about that. God Shamgod is a development coach. And you're right. I think he's going to be more on the development kind of back a bench type guy. But God Shamgod is a development coach that Luka Doncic loves, that Kyrie Irving loves. And like when I mentioned God Shamgod's given credit for working with Kyrie, and everyone's like, Kyrie's handles are amazing. Like, why are you giving the coach credit for that? I was like, no. Like, Kyrie loves this dude. Like he wants to work with this dude. And so when you have stars who want to work with your development coaches, that says a lot. And right. That's how they get better. And that's how they take their next step and take their next leap or maintain their level as they get older, even as I think Kyrie is largely done. And so I do think that is a big sea change for this team. Last thing before we sign off for this kind of vibe check. The last bit of the summer for the Magic is EuroBasket now. We'll await the schedule coming out and break down the schedule and all that. It's a schedule. There's 82 games. Like, who cares? Who cares how
41 home, 41 road stuff?
Yeah. The Magic don't have any weird like games in Mexico City this year. Well, there could be, if the Magic take care of their business in the NBA Cup, there could be 83 games. We'll see. And one of those games will be in Vegas. We'll see. Apparently you don't want to win the NBA Cup right now. Like it has not turned out well for the two winners. But I'm a big believer. So we'll see about that. The last bit of the summer is EuroBasket, and I think there's obviously a lot of anticipation to see where Franz Wagner is at when Team Germany. And we haven't mentioned Franz a lot on this show because Paolo does soak up a lot of attention on the court, just as he does on the airwaves. We know Germany's a favorite to win the tournament, and I think Germany's expectations are medal at minimum, win gold at, they expect to win gold in that tournament, even with Giannis playing, even with Jokic likely to play. I don't know if we're recording this Thursday afternoon, so I don't know if he's announced yet. What do you want to see from Franz, or what are you hoping to see from Franz, or what do you think the Magic are hoping to see from Franz as he plays these high pressure tournament games right before camp begins?
Well, I think the Magic want to see him stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%.
That's obvious, but I do think they want to see the Franz that we saw in November, right? When they won 12 out of 13 games and he was the leader of that team, because, I think Dennis Schroeder gets a lot of attention for that German team, but it's Franz's team, right? And I think what happened was when Paolo went down, Franz took over. And when you look at that level that he was at pre-injury of his own injury, and the money they're paying him, like, he's really talented, and running the offense through him was really impressive. And you talk about that win at the Lakers when he hit the three, and just that whole time for him, I think, said a lot about who he could be and who he is, quite frankly. And so when you look at EuroBasket and his opportunity there, I think he wants out of it to win. And I think from the Magic perspective, like, the fact that we saw him in the facility, I can't even remember, was that when Tyus was introduced?
It was the Monday before Summer League.
Yeah, it was when they introduced Tyus, and we talked with everybody, and Franz was in there, and it was like, oh wow, look at that. He's I think we know how.
Did not expect him back in Orlando,
but just the fact that he was in Orlando says a lot. And I think just the role he has for that team, and he's going to be the leader of that team. To see, obviously, the focus is going to be on his 3-point shot. You mentioned it before. Pre-oblique, his shot was fixed. Post-oblique, there was a little bit of a hitch there. There was some awkwardness there, but I think some of that had to be accounted for with the injury. So what does he look like healthy all these months off? And obviously he did look good towards the end of the year, but with some time off, with physical therapy and building strength back up and everything that comes with the offseason of training, I think we're all looking to see what his shot looks like, quite frankly. And maybe that's a little unfair because there's so many other aspects of his game, his craftiness, his footwork, and everything else, and the ball in his hands, and his defense. I mean, he's one of the rare two-way players that I don't think he gets enough credit on the defensive end for how special he can be. I remember the game that he got hurt, the night he got hurt. We didn't know it at the time, but I was in the locker room in Philadelphia with Josh Robbins, shout out the Bird. And we asked him about his two-way capabilities, and he said that he uses his defense to sometimes energize his offense. So I think it's an opportunity for him to showcase what he's been working on, to showcase what his shot looks like. We saw some photos and whatnot of him shooting the ball in the facility and whatnot. Those are just pictures. So I think everyone involved wants to see what he looks like, and I think it's going to be really exciting because it's going to be fun to watch.
They were definitely trying to shuttle us out of the building as quickly as possible so Franz could start working out. Like, he was definitely waiting for us to leave because they like, he's going to have to show it publicly, obviously, in EuroBasket. He doesn't have a choice there. But it definitely felt like, no, we're not quite ready to show you what he's working on. You're going to have to wait a little bit. But obviously, like, as much as adding Desmond, Bane, and Tyus Jones should improve the team shooting, just to get back to that. The Magic did not have any players shoot better than 40% on catch and shoot threes last year, according to Second Spectrum. Both Bane and Jones did that. So you've added two very good shooters to your team already. They're not enough. If Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who had a bad shooting year, proved anything, adding one shooter is not enough. The Magic are still going to need Jalen Suggs to look like he did early in the season before Paolo's injury. They're going to need him to hit shots. They're going to need Paolo and Franz to be threats from three, to be the kind of team they think they can be as a championship team. And they don't have to be elite or anything, but defenses have to respect.
They have to keep them honest. They have to keep defenses honest, and they can do that. We've seen that. And I think with Franz it's going to be an opportunity to showcase, hey, I'm back. Hey, I'm back from 3. You're going to have to guard me out here. You're going to have to give me attention out here.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's exciting is like the Magic have like 2 very high level players and now seem to have a really high level starting lineup to boost things. We could probably talk for another hour, but I think we're going to have to cut it off there. I don't know how many episodes this ended up getting divided into because we just recorded straight. Jason, want to thank you once again for joining the show, giving us this vibe check, kind of filling out the time here in the dead parts of the off season. And obviously we will talk to you very soon, I'm sure, over the latest thing going on with the Magic.
Absolutely. It's always a fun time. Thank you.
I want to thank Jason once again for popping on the show. We try to have him on every so often here. You know, him and I are probably the 2 guys on the beat the most. He actually gets to travel a little bit more than I do. Some of the backing that he has. But appreciate Jason for stopping by, giving us the vibe check since he was out in Vegas, where the Orlando Magic were supposedly gathered and at least present. So gives us a sense of where the Magic are this offseason. You can, of course, follow Jason Beatty on Twitter at @TheRealBeede, Beede. That's Beede, as well as on Blue Sky at @JBeede. Appreciate Jason once again. Follows great work at the Orlando Sentinel. When we come back from this break, we're going to chat a little bit more about what the Magic have to prove this season and where the trouble could be. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Knowledge is truly power. And if you're not tracking where your money's going or where you're spending, that means you don't know where you're spending. You don't know where your money's going. And that means when you come up short, you're going to be asking yourself why. Monarch Money does that for you. It tells you how much you're spending on takeout, how much you're spending on subscriptions, how much you're spending everywhere, and gives you the power to change it. Gives you the power to know, I need to cut back on this. I need to spend a little bit more on that. That's what Monarch Money does, and that's why it is such a great tool just to have that information at your fingertips. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Once again, I want to thank Jason for coming on the show and filling some time here over the last 3 episodes. We did run out a little bit here. First segment ran a little bit long, so I apologize a little bit for that. I don't know if you care or not. My bosses might. But let's recap a little bit what we talked about over these last 3 days. The big takeaway, I think, undoubtedly the big takeaway is that expectations have changed for this team. Like, that's not rocket science. Like, there are very heavy expectations. It was one of the big messages. Pressure is a privilege. You do not get these weighty expectations. You do not get to feel like, oh, I have a lot to prove or we have a lot to prove here if you don't deserve them. You don't get this if you haven't earned it to some degree. If anything, the rebuild should have taught us the biggest mistake is putting expectation and pressure on a team that's not ready for it is a sure ticket for failure. It's knowing when to push those chips in. That's been a theme that I know I have talked a lot about over the course of my time doing this show is when is that right time? Now, obviously, part of the equation here is that this was the time. There was no time after this. Orlando paid for Franz Wagner. Orlando paid for Jalen Suggs. They paid for Wendell Carter. And then they paid for Paolo Banchero. The Magic are going to be, and they paid for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to some extent too. The Magic are going to be a second apron team next season. They're going to have so few resources to add to this team. If the Magic didn't address the issues that led them to take a step back this year, injuries were part of that, obviously, but if the Magic did not address what was so clear in these last two playoffs, it would have been a missed opportunity. It would have been just plain and simple. The Magic let their window slip. The Magic let their opportunity to get better, to establish themselves as a championship team. The Magic haven't had two All-Stars on the same team since Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson and Rashard Lewis in 2009. It's only happened 4 times in Magic history that the Magic have had multiple All-Stars in a season. 1995, 1996, 2001, and 2009. 2001 barely counts because Grant Hill was voted a starter despite playing only 4 games that season. The Magic have 2 All-Stars on this team. And let's be real, 1985 and 1986 were 2 finals-worthy teams. 2009 went to the NBA Finals. This is the kind of opportunity in front of the Orlando Magic. And so the Magic had to be aggressive this summer. They had to go for it. It's not that this was the right time, and certainly they made sure it was the right player. I'm not, don't give Jeff Weltman credit for the timing. The timing was obvious. Give Jeff Weltman credit for the ingenuity, the willingness to spend, the willingness to go all in on the kind of player that can truly transform this team. It's no wonder Kevin Pelton gave the Magic a B for their offseason. Mark Spears on NBA Today said that the Magic accomplished everything that their superstar asked of them, that their fans asked of them. They accomplished everything they needed. And now we are talking here in late July without any irony, without any hyperbole, that the Magic can win the Eastern Conference. Now, is it going to happen? Certainly, I think one of the things that is keeping people from saying, oh, the Magic are clearly a finals contending team or a finals contending team, even if this is not a sort of down year in the Eastern Conference. The only thing preventing that is the Magic just haven't done it yet. Orlando hasn't won a playoff series. Orlando hasn't gotten home court advantage. They haven't gotten through an entire season. Like we mentioned in the conversation with Jason Beatty, the Magic faltered at the end of the 2024 season. They stumbled. They tripped on their way to the finish line. That is all part of it too. And so the Magic have a lot to prove this season. They have a lot they need to accomplish. They need to show that they are worth these expectations, that they can step up to the plate and deliver. Now, again, naturally growth would suggest, yeah, they can do that. We watched this team when they were healthy, how good they can be. They got better this offseason. Desmond Bane, and frankly, maybe we're underselling Tyus Jones because I think, I know I still kind of harp on some of his shortcomings. Tyus Jones is going to help this team a lot too. The Magic got better just on a talent basis. Now, there are still questions. I want to get to some of those questions. I've asked and thought about a lot of these questions too. But the Magic have put themselves in a position to compete at the highest level. They have put themselves in a position where we are not merely talking about a championship or going to the finals as some far off thing, as some distant thing. Orlando's window is now. Magic are going to be a second apron team in 2027. You can only be in the second apron for so long. The next 3 years at minimum, if not maximum, the next 3 years are the window. The Magic are going to use this year to show that, hey, we are ready to contend. That's sort of the task of the season. Again, what I talked about with Jason there. The 2024 season was about making the playoffs and kind of announcing their arrival. The 2025 season was about supposedly proving that the Magic could compete with those championship level teams. Now, injuries obviously prevented them from having the season that they wanted, and I think it's fair to blame injuries for that. But against the Boston Celtics with a relatively healthy squad, obviously missing 2 very key players, against the Boston Celtics, the Magic showed they are not ready to compete for a championship. This season is about putting all that together. Not only winning a playoff series, not only getting home court advantage, accomplishing those things they wanted to accomplish in 2025, but showing they are ready, maybe not this year, but showing hints and signs that they are ready to compete for NBA championships. Because ultimately, that's the goal. That's the goal the Magic has set for themselves. They are not hiding from that. And so the Magic have a lot to prove. This is a big, big, big season. And right now, the vibes are very, very good. Right now, the Magic are excited about the opportunity. The players that I have talked to, and again, it's been very, very little because everyone kind of scatters to the wind in the summer. But the players I have talked to since the trade, they have been super excited. They understand the stakes that have been raised, and they're excited to get to work. So what could prevent the Magic from accomplishing their goals? That's what we're going to talk about here coming up in just a moment. I am not a negative person. I promise you. I am not a negative person. I think I have said this during the interminable rebuild that I am more miserable when the team is winning. Because when you're winning, you demand perfection. You understand that there is a standard to winning championships, to being a championship level team. And hitting that standard is not easy. You win and you're not hitting that standard. It is about wins and losses, and you win playing poorly because you're that good. So I'm just going to preface all this by saying that no matter how negative you think I'm talking about this team, I am talking about that in the context of, the Magic are going to be a top 4 seed at minimum. The Magic are going to win a first round series. The Magic are ready to contend. This is me raising the standard and wondering, how do we raise that standard? How do we get to that next level, to that ultimate level that again, the Magic are trying to get to? The Magic want to win championships. They aren't hiding from it. They aren't denying it. They aren't going away from it. The Magic want to win championships. So how do we get there? That is the ultimate question. That is what's ultimately at stake here. That's ultimately what they're trying to solve. The trouble is still about this internal development. And I think while Desmond, Bane, and Tyus Jones have the opportunity to change a whole lot about this team, from the gravity, from the shooting depth, obviously, from some offensive depth, to being able to compete on defense. Like, I don't think the Magic's defense is going to lag that much. I think the Magic's offense will be greatly improved. I think the streak is ending. Sorry, Zach Lowe. The streak is going to end this season. Freezing cold, take me later like you did last year. Zach didn't, but you probably did. I thought it was going to end last year. But so much of what the Magic still have left to do is about internal development. Paolo Banchero does not deserve all the criticism he gets about his efficiency. He has to take inefficient shots because this team has no spacing, has no shooting. Everything runs through him. He has to deliver at that high level. And guess what? For all the criticisms about his efficiency and everyone looking at his season-long numbers, throw out his January when he was just coming back from a major core injury. The guy shot 46% on the shots that he's taking, shot 33% from three, 78% from line, 58% true shooting percentage. I looked it up among players with a 30% usage rate after the All-Star break. This is all these stats are from. After the All-Star break, Paolo Banchero shot a 58.1% true shooting percentage. Among all players with a 30% usage rate after the All-Star break, Paolo Banchero was 7th in true shooting percentage. Whatever you think about Paolo Banchero and his efficiency, he has made that leap. But now he's got to do it again. He's got to stack years over years over years. And look, that's natural for young players to have to prove. Franz Wagner is an all-star. He's going to be an all-star this season. If the Magic do their jobs, if the Magic win a lot of games, he's going to be an all-star. But Franz has got to make threes. Ultimately, the biggest thing that I think we learned from last season was that adding one shooter isn't going to change a whole lot. Now, we're going to talk probably tomorrow about why Desmond Bane is a different kind of shooting acquisition than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's on my queue. Articles up on Orlando Magic Daily if you want to go ahead and read that. Adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was supposed to solve all the shooting problems. And obviously, he had a bad year. We can't explain why. We don't know why. He's a relatively low volume shooter. Who knows? Again, I'm a big believer that KCP is going to bounce back in Memphis. I'm not, Jason, I think, said it in our conversation over the last few days. Ultimately, Desmond Bane's going to help. He's going to make things easier, but the Magic need more. They need Paolo to be a consistent three-point shooter. Look, last year, again, take out the injury, he was a much better three-point shooter. Franz Wagner cannot shoot sub 30% if he's going to shoot the volume he's shooting, about 5 threes per game. He's got to be up at around 1.5, 2 threes per game. He's got to be consistent. He's got to be a threat. And ultimately, that's what killed the Magic's offense last year. 27th in the league in offensive rating was that nobody was a threat from the outside. Teams did not have to worry about the three-point line, about defending the perimeter. They could bottle up the paint. And so this internal development is still vital. Now, Jalen Suggs coming back is going to be a big deal. He was the Magic's highest volume three-point shooter last year. Before Paolo Banchero's injury, and certainly before Franz Wagner's injury, he was taking a lot of catch and shoot threes and making a decent amount of them. Tailed off as he took on more on-ball responsibilities. Not going to be a great pull-up three-point shooter. You don't want to see him take a ton of those. That's what Desmond Bane's actually really good at. But catch and shoot three-pointers, last year Jalen Suggs probably was going to make the leap on that, except injuries just changed everything. Obviously, injuries took him out of the lineup later in the season, but the Paolo injury really affected. I know I said this earlier. Paolo Banchero getting hurt that early into the season, I think, was a bigger factor than a lot of people are letting on. Just everyone couldn't get into rhythm. They had to completely change roles. They had to completely change a lot of responsibilities. It was a big deal that Paolo got hurt 5 games in the season. That happens in December. I don't think I think the Magic hold the boat steady a lot better than they did. And again, like Franz Wagner gets a lot of credit. We don't get the Franz Renaissance, the Franz-essence that we got. There's give and take. There's good that came out of it. Again, you can't control how that happens. But this internal development is so vital across the board. It's Tristan da Silva, who we saw play very, very well in Summer League, played very, very well in Summer League last year too, taking a step up to be a reliable role player, to be someone the Magic can count on game after game. It's Anthony Black being consistent. The difference between Anthony Black in wins and losses was the difference in the season for the Magic. And the Magic are going to be leaning a lot more on Black this year. They need him to step up and be a reliable player. Not to mention, it's an extension year for him. He is, his contract isn't up. He's still got one more year after this one, but the Magic got to figure out what they're going to pay him. And that could have a trickle-down effect to a lot of other decisions on the roster. Jonathan Isaac being any kind of offensive threat would be a huge deal because his defense is still elite. Even with how poorly he played last year, his defense was still pretty darn good. But because he couldn't shoot, his defense didn't make up for his poor offense. Wendell Carter being a better three-point shooter, being able to space the floor. It's something Desmond Bane talks about a lot, that Wendell Carter is a floor spacer. And look, he's saying that's his reputation maybe around the league, but we all watched it. It was a struggle for him. All of these things matter. And so while, yes, the addition of Desmond Bane, the addition of Tyus Jones matter a lot, it's going to be how the Magic grow internally that still determines how far this team goes. Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones are probably good enough to make this team a home court advantage team, to get this team to the second round. If the Magic are going to surprise the league and get to the conference finals, if the Magic are going to convince the entire world that they are a championship level team, which is, again, what they're claiming, what they want to be, if the Magic are going to be all of those things, it's going to come from everybody else on the roster. That's good for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You, of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun ways to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled device. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily and For even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, your Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. We talked a lot about Tyus Jones over the last 3 days. I have a video. It is pinned to the top of my Patreon page talking about how Tyus Jones gets his assists. Some really good video study on that. Or I think it's really good. Maybe it's not. But I think it's really good. You can check that out again at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, go make your next listen the Locked On NBA podcast, because there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back again next time. We'll talk a little bit more about the differences between Desmond Bane and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. There is a big statistical difference, a big stylistic difference that will have a big impact for the Magic. We'll talk about that. Plus, I got to get to Jamal Cain. We obviously recorded before the Jamal Cain signing. We'll get to some two-way stuff. Again, scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but we'll get to it all here on Locked On Magic. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Phil Rossman-Reich. We'll see you again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.